You're listening to ayahuascapodcast.com.
하트라간 소롱아 센노고토아 TV 핫서로안 소롱아 센노고토아 TV. Anyone who has sat with the plant medicines will know what I'm speaking about. It's like there are no words for the depths to which we had taken on a very, very kind of personal, human, emotional, trauma healing level. And then there is the whole realms of helping us to access and remember that we are a spirit, part of a world that is spirit, and the realms that I've been to with the plant medicine, like they opened up so much of that for me. To be able to feel the spirits and speak with them and receive messages and look at this creation and see really what it is. Like, wow, it's absolute mysterious.
Con la vida, vida de la baila, cura con la guaira, limpia, limpia, taita, vibrando con la hualca.
In this episode of Ayahuasca Podcast, I interview Ayla Schafer, a renowned medicine musician. We talk about her own hero's journey and the role plant medicine played in it. We talk about music as a tool for healing. She tells us about her process of writing songs and why she now sings in Proto-Celtic. We talk about current crisis the earth is facing and how you need to heal yourself first before helping others. Enjoy this episode. This episode is sponsored by La Huayra Ayahuasca Retreat. At La Huayra, we combine affordability, accessibility, and authenticity. La Huayra, connect, heal, grow. Guys, I'm looking forward to hosting you. Hi, guys, and welcome to Ayahuasca Podcast. As always, with you, the host, Sam Believ. Today, we have a very special guest, Ayla Schafer. Ayla is a multilingual singer and songwriter. She's a song carrier. She's a ceremonial musician, and she's the voice of the earth, pretty much. Ayla, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me here, Sam.
Ayla, well, first of all, I'm a big fan of your music, and we played in the ceremony as well. And one of the very first songs I learned to play on the guitar was the Vuela con el Viento. So it's great to have you on the show. I would like to tell the listeners a little bit about you. The very few who don't know you, and what brought you into the music, and most importantly, the ceremonial music.
What brought me into music in general, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I grew up in a fairly musical family, not particularly from my parents, but my mother always encouraged us to be in spaces that were kind of nourishing musicality. So we learned different instruments and, like theatre groups, singing theatre groups and choirs. And so I feel like what brought me into music was just something that was very natural and was kind of already unfolding since a young age. I always sang loudly in the home, even as a child. And I started writing my own stuff. My mum bought me a guitar when I was 15, and then that kind of opened up a new chapter of bringing the music like much deeper home to myself, and beginning to learn from then, beginning to express really my own music of my heart and my emotions and my feelings. And this was always something that it was just happening in a very natural way. That's just what my soul needed to do. But there was a big turning point in my life when I went traveling to South America for the first time. I think I was about 21. Had this moment in my life of a kind of, I would say, like one of the first dark nights of my soul. This kind of classic moments that we go through as human beings, some of us many times, some people maybe only, once. There's no one way that this can happen. So I kind of went through this time of great crisis. It felt like a really big crisis, and a death and a crumbling of everything around me, within me, which inspired me to go on a kind of quest, a soul quest to South America. And what was interesting when I arrived on this journey, and I would say the first year of this journey, I ended up being away for 2 years. The first year of the journey, I basically like quit music. I'm not doing this anymore, for all the different reasons. I'm going to go and just go on a soul quest. And I mentioned that because it feels like it was something very important, that I kind of really went with this very open, like a blank new page. I kind of closed a chapter and opened a blank new page. I'm not a musician. I'm not a singer. That's not what I do. Kind of threw away any identity with that. Something needed to be stripped really to a pure place. And then in my journey I spent those 2 years in Mexico and Peru. As things often happen when we kind of throw ourselves in a deep trust and faith into the unknown, like an adventure like this, things just unfolded in a very synchronistic, natural, effortless way. I met somebody who led me to this thing, and then that led me to this thing. I literally felt like I was drawing a dot-to-dot picture. I didn't know what the picture was going to be, but it was very clear, like, I'm here, very clear, go to that dot, very clear, go to that dot. And during that time, I, for the first time in my life, was sitting with people who were singing songs of praise and celebration and prayer to the earth, to the spirits, to the ancestors, singing traditional songs from various lineages, there in Mexico. There's such a meeting place of so many different traditions, and the medicine ways and the Native American ways and the traditional ways of the Mexica people and the Huichol people. And this was totally new for me, music as being part of ceremony, being in sweat lodges and the sun dance and the vision quest. And eventually, after quite some time, I ended up going to the desert there in Mexico, which was my first experience with any plant medicine, eating a lot of peyote there in the desert, and having there's no words really for what can describe what happened for me there. And from there, I had a very clear direction to go to Peru and start working with the ayahuasca there. And ended up being 6 months in the Sacred Valley, just very fully immersed. A lot of medicine, a lot of ceremonies, a lot of people, a lot of confronting myself. And it wasn't until I was there in those ceremonies that I really started to sing again, actually. So a good year and a half of being in a kind of musical void space. And the medicine, that space with the ayahuasca, it's like came home deeply to my heart. And it's continued from there, really.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the crisis, what started your musical crisis was that you would sing in like bars or clubs and stuff like this, and people would not necessarily be like paying attention to you. As a bit of a musician myself, I remember for me it was always strange to understand that you can be like just become this background noise, and it's very frustrating. So when you started singing again, have you ever? So I would assume you found yourself singing in the ceremony.
Yeah, a very little bit, very small amount, because it was all very new, and I definitely spent a good majority of the time on the floor, knocked out. But yeah, there would be moments that, they would open up that space or invite me to sing. And I mean, the grace that I would experience in those moments was something I had never, ever experienced and could never have imagined, absolute pure grace and light. And what was very significant was that I mostly was having a very, very rough time with the medicine. Like, that's what needed to happen for me, mostly like churning and a lot of pain, a lot of darkness. Yeah, someone would put a guitar in my hands and I would open my mouth and it was like my spirit kind of came back. I would come into alignment in myself. I would come into just very, very profound contact with, whatever name we want to call this divinity, this light, this love. And just extraordinarily beautiful to feel that.
Yeah, singing in the ceremony is a very different experience because you get undivided attention. And as I like to say, I don't know if you ever experienced it, but the best compliment for a medicine musician singing in an ayahuasca ceremony is if people start purging or puking. So it's very different from let's say singing in a bar. So you described this feeling of harmonizing yourself with your own music. So obviously now with all this experience, what do you think happens there when you sing? And when you sing, do you also like have an intention as a bit of the spiritual intention to get people somewhere? What does this process look like for you?
Well, at the beginning, I definitely didn't have any intention like that. It was a very innocent, just bringing the absolute naked, vulnerable truth of my heart and my soul and my being, and singing from that place, singing that and singing through that. And if I reflect back now, if I have to put it into words, which I'm often quite reluctant, to kind of, in some ways it's like we can never really understand these mysteries, the many mysteries. And I do feel like music and singing is something very mysterious and very potent and powerful and magical and very real. And there's so many ways of explaining it and so many ways of interpreting it. But one thing that comes to me is I feel what I probably was always doing when I was singing, even very subconsciously. And now, as I'm older and, more, have walked much more of my pathway, I feel like I can do it more consciously. But it's really just like singing the love that is my spirit, like radiating that, emanating that, channeling that, and offering the love of my heart through my voice. And I include within love, I include the grief and the rawness and the vulnerability. I don't just mean like love is all beautiful and happy and blissful. Like those are aspects of that, but love, like, is our heart, the fullness and the rawness and the depth of who we are. And I guess, from the people who sit and who have sat in the ceremony and received from me, that is touching a place in their heart, because it's the language of the heart. My heart is speaking to the rawness. The rawness of my heart is speaking to the rawness of their heart. And I also truly believe our heart is anyway just a gateway to the much greater that is us and beyond us. So through our heart, the spirit speaks and the earth speaks and the ancestors speak. Like this is a great gateway to the greater of this existence.
That's a great way to describe it. I like how you talk about those things. I can feel myself calming down as well. So it's beautiful. Do you remember the first medicine song that you written? Do you remember when your music kind of went from just being music and went to being more of a ceremony and more of a medicine music? Was there a shift or was it like a gradual transition?
Um, I would say both. It was a shift and it also was gradual. Like when I came back from this journey, this 2-year journey, the collection of songs that I wrote during that time were like, I feel like they were it was like bridge songs, if that makes sense. So it wasn't that I went suddenly from this kind of other phase that I'd been in and suddenly was in this medicine music chapter or something. There were these songs that were coming through that were like a little bit of both somehow. And then I think the first song might have been Onshi Makar. I can't remember if it was that or Vuela con el Viento, but basically those two songs were the first two songs that were very distinctly... No, I'm wrong. Sorry, I'm totally wrong. It was neither of those. It was I Call You. And then those two songs came, but those three songs came all around the same time and it was quite distinctly different. And when I wrote I Call You, I remember quite clearly giving myself permission to uncensor myself. I'd kind of realized that a part of me had been like holding back or still, saying things and expressing in a way that was safe, like culturally safe, basically. Like, oh, I'll still be more or less accepted if I sing about this. And then I wrote I Call You, which is a song, an invocation to my ancestors and to many different spirits, to animals, to guides, to the forces of creation. And it was post ceremony. I think it was the morning after ceremony, and I really was like, I set myself free. I'm just going to sing absolutely what is coming through from my prayer and my heart. And then that was the shift. That was a clear shift.
It's exactly bringing me to my next question. Some people describe medicine musicians or musicians in generally, they describe this process of almost the universe, the Pachamama, writing songs through them as if some song just comes to them and it just lingers in your mind and you almost can't help but write it. The synchronistically, it's just kind of pushed upon you. So in a way, what do you think? What role does the plant medicine play in your journey as songwriter? And can you maybe describe this process to people? Like how is the music born in you, and what role the plant medicines play in that?
The answer feels really very big because the role that the plant medicines have played for me, specifically in my musical journey, I can't separate my musical journey from like my human soul journey. It's like it is the same journey. So really, what actually has been the most relevant is that the plant medicines have been great teachers and guides and support for going on very, very deep healing experiences with myself, of understanding, seeing myself in the powerful depths that the medicines help us to go, help us to access things that have been so deeply buried, confronting our trauma and releasing and crying and feeling and seeing and growing. Anyone who has sat with the plant medicines will know what I'm speaking about. It's just like there's no words for the depths to which we had taken on a very very kind of personal, human, emotional, trauma healing level. And then there is the whole realms of helping us to access and remember that we are a spirit, part of a world that is spirit, and the realms that I've been to, the plant medicine, they opened up so much of that for me, to be able to feel the spirits and speak with them and receive messages and look at this creation and see really what it is. Like, wow, this absolute mysterious miracle where everything is living and breathing and talking, everything, the air, the plants, the water, the sky, the trees. Like, this is what is real. They really are helping us to see and remember and be in communication with, to be speaking and receiving the language of the spirit world. So all of the, for just on a very personal level, the journeys that I've been through, the healing that I've been through, the way that the world, the truth of this reality has been revealed to me by the plant medicines, all of that has then become that which I am singing. It comes through my music indirectly in that sense, because where I sing from is really my experience and where I'm at and my prayers. And this is another aspect of being in ceremony, being with the plant medicines, but also the ceremony that comes with that, the language, the way of being in prayer together and being in a state of deep reverence and honor and respect for all of life, which is kind of very much the language of being, being in these ceremonies that you can't not be in that. I keep using the word language, I guess, because I feel like a lot of it is about the conversation that we're having, whether it's the conversation we're having with the plants or the conversation with ourselves or the conversation with the earth or the conversation with the spirits. And the conversation isn't just a language of words. It's really like a language of deep feeling and intuition and heightened senses. So the aspect of prayer has had a massive impact on in which form my songs are taking, basically really allowing myself to pray, which most of us growing up in the conventional world we live in, I came from a non-religious family. Like I had no sense of prayer or speaking to forces other than myself, or engaging in a sacred conversation, communication. So yeah, I hope that answers the question in a kind of...
It does, yeah, it absolutely does. You mentioned the word language. I think music is the universal language, right? It can be understood by anyone, and nature also plays music, and I can hear birds singing right now around me as well. It's very musical. And I know you, speaking of language from a human term, you write songs in English and in Spanish. And it's interesting because I noticed that for me personally, the language I use to communicate with plants is Spanish, because this is how I learned it here in Colombia. So if I want to work with a tobacco, I speak to it in Spanish, abuelo tabaco and stuff like that. So how does that come to you, and like how do you choose the language in which to express a certain creative idea?
It's a good question. It's not really very clear to me how that happens. It just, I guess it would be similar. Like how do you choose the chords that you play on the song? How do you choose the rhythm? How do you choose how fast it is? How do you choose the words? Like, it's there is an impulse, there is a feeling, there is something moving in the spirit and in the heart that is wants to be expressed, and that feeling needs to kind of be given a form that is the feeling, if that makes sense. The music is the form of whatever that impulse is, where it's coming from, that feeling, that prayer, that voice. And I guess I'd just like to add, I actually now started singing in Proto-Celtic, which is the oldest recorded version of the Celtic language. It's not a spoken language anymore. And it's not a complete language anymore. And the Celtic ancestors would have spoken this about 4,000 years ago. And in the chapter of my life that I'm in right now, I'm mostly writing in Proto-Celtic. And it just feels right. It just feels that is in resonance with what I'm experiencing inside of myself. So that would be the same, when it's a Spanish song or when it's an English song, there is somehow a resonance that simply feels right.
Can you, I'm sure people are very curious, but can you maybe just sing a short verse in Proto-Celtic just so we know how it sounds like?
A short verse in Proto-Celtic, let me think. Hatire kansoruna senno gotuatibi hatsoro ansoruna senno gotuatibi.
Beautiful. I did manage to get you to sing, so final.
You tricked me into doing it.
Yeah, I tricked you into it. This is beautiful. Thank you for sharing it. And my sister lives in Ireland, and she, after coming to experience ayahuasca here at Lawira, she got very inspired in the shamanic journey, and she's doing the drumic in the Celtic tradition and talking to the trees. So I visited her a couple of times, and it sounds Irish, Celtic as well, Gaelic. It sounds a bit like that. And there was this deep shamanistic tradition in British Isles and the Celts. They also had their own plant medicine. I believe it was the Amanita muscaria, right? I don't know if you just channel it through yourself, or maybe there is some kind of tradition you're connecting with or rediscovering something. How does it feel for you?
Well, sadly, the traditions have been, for the most part, destroyed by what has happened across Europe and Ireland and England and Scotland. The same stories, really, like religion, colonization, invasion, destruction, witch hunts. They sadly, those forces that have ravaged the European lands, they did do a very, very, very good job at pretty much destroying the roots of the traditions. Ireland has got a lot more intact than England. I don't know, I don't have Irish ancestry, so it's not something that I have followed much, but I have many friends who are kind of also following the threads of the Celtic pathways. In Ireland, it's much more alive. I think they lost less, but they still lost a lot. And in terms of the ceremonies of the plant medicines, it wasn't just the Amanita, it was also the there's a smaller mushroom. I think people maybe call it the Liberty Cap, or there's various names. But mushrooms, basically, the psychedelic mushrooms are the indigenous medicines of certainly England and Wales and Scotland, and I imagine Ireland. But the traditions, the clarity and the definition of the traditions that held them, and how ceremonies would have been held, and what were the songs, and what was the protocol. This, as far as I'm aware, and I say that because I have the limits to what I really know. As far as I'm aware, people are having to re-envision or receive again exactly what that looked like. And I haven't so far in my life come into contact with somebody that it felt really resonant for me to sit with them with the mushrooms in a ceremonial way. My journey and my ancestors are calling me to connect through the medicine of the land and the spirit that is so alive, and of the stones and the sacred sites. And the mushrooms are calling me very clearly, but it's unfolding slowly, and at the moment it's a very solitary it's a solitary process where I feel like I am being asked to remember from within myself and from the land, from being in relationship with the land, and kind of awakening the memory of my bones. I don't have the presence of the teachers and the elders that I deeply long for, and of which there certainly is more presence of that in the Americas.
This is it is very sad, right, that some traditions been destroyed, and they will never be able to like listen to their ikaros or their chants, and never know how they used to do the ceremony. But in a way, it is beautiful with plant medicines that the knowledge is there. And sometimes I remember when I started my journey with plant medicines, the taitas here in Colombia, they call them taitas, but normally you would say shamans. They told me that the medicine is the ultimate teacher. It will show you exactly how you need to do your stuff. So some people might have their own sort of input, but the medicine will show you how to do it right. So I'm assuming if you were to work with the traditional plant medicines in the place where they were with this intention, they will once again teach us how to do it properly, and recover those traditions. The most fascinating story I've heard about it is about the medicine called Wilca, and the shaman that was giving us Wilca told us that they would drink San Pedro in those ancient megalithic sites, and as they were drinking San Pedro, all of a sudden San Pedro gave them ability to understand the signs on the stones, and through that they were able to recover this medicine of Wilca, which I don't know if it's a true story, but it's fascinating. Imagine like rediscovering those ancient traditions. That's really, really cool, and we're so lucky to have the traditions that have survived, like the peyote tradition, the San Pedro tradition, the ayahuasca tradition, and even mushrooms, in some parts of Mexico. And I'm really surprised that your medicine journey started in Mexico, but you're only now kind of getting into the mushroom side of things. So let's talk about that. What is your favorite way to what are your favorite plant medicines, and why, and what you mentioned that ayahuasca is very, your ayahuasca experiences are very profound. What about other plant medicines? Or just talk to us a little bit about that.
In some ways, I don't really feel like I have a favorite. It's like I feel that I receive different things from from different medicines. Like quite literally, each medicine is a different medicine for my being and my healing and my journey. Like the gifts, the qualities are different, and there may be certain moments where I feel that a certain quality is more needed than another quality. The two medicines that really I've worked the most with is the peyote and the ayahuasca, and I love them both deeply. It's a bit like, someone saying like, who do you love more in your family? You'd be like, well, it's not really about like which one is my favorite. Like I love them all, but yet the relationship with each is so totally different. And I think of ayahuasca like my mother, like it's the feminine quality. Like when I in my imagination connect with that, I kind of feel like embraced I can curl up in my deep vulnerability and be safe and be embraced to go really deep into the things that I need to meet in myself, which has been a lot of pain and a lot of grief and a lot of trauma. Whereas with the peyote, it's been more like upright and more kind of open and out and meeting my strengths and aligning myself. And of course, what also makes a massive difference is the tradition that is that the ceremony is being held in. And this is kind of almost as important as the medicine itself, can make such a big difference. Say if you're sitting in the ceremony like Shipibo tradition, or even in Colombia, it's quite like in the dark, a lot of silence, and quiet and not so much movement, compared to if you sit with the Yawanawa, where it's like not silent for a second and it's so much joy and so much celebration and dancing. That makes a huge difference to the experience that is going to be had. So really there's the medicine, and then there's the tradition, and then they kind of merge and define the experience together. And I would say my pathway has been also navigating a lot of like, which tradition am I called to? The songs and the way and the root of that, the teachings that come with the tradition, and what I'm learning from that sacred ancient knowledge. And now I'm kind of returning to my own heritage and feeling this sense of like, I've spent so many years exploring with other traditions which have given me so much, and now I'm kind of being like called back home to my own hearth fire, like the fire of my homeland, where my ancestors come from, where the memory is held in my blood and my bones. And what comes with that is a clear calling, like Ayla, the mushrooms, you need to work with the mushroom. It's time now to go there. And like you said, I'm surprised that it's for so many years. He'd been working with medicines for years, and it's only just now coming. And I go like, yeah, I'm also surprised, but it's almost like I had to learn all that I learned from these other traditions to be in the place where I am now, which is probably more capable of holding that for myself, because that's kind of what's needed with a medicine where there isn't a clear instruction and a clear direction, anyway, not from the human world at the moment.
Yeah, it's very interesting how, synchronistically, it just all happens in the perfect way. And I've personally been feeling that in my work, I've been doing a lot of work myself, but every big step and every big decision was some kind of synchronistic event where it was like, you go this way. And I never set out to start an ayahuasca retreat. I just wanted to maybe drink medicine from home, and then it just became this big thing. You talk about different traditions. I don't know, have you ever heard about Inga tradition, of like Colombian Jahe ayahuasca tradition? Have you heard about it?
Well, I did spend some time in Colombia, sitting with some titers. It's not something that I know that I experienced a huge amount with, but I think I've had a glimpse.
So in Colombia, there are 5 tribes, I believe, that work with ayahuasca traditionally: Cofan, Inga, Siona, Kamsat, and I always forget one. But the Inga is a very musical tradition, at least the Taitas, the lineage I work with. And the music starts 1 hour after the medicine is served, and almost doesn't end till the end of the ceremony with just short breaks. And the music starts slowly with quiet songs where, some of your music would fit perfectly. And I have played your music as well. in our ceremonies many times. And then it starts to build and build, and I think it ends up, you described this Yawanawa
Yawanawa.
tradition, where it's more joyous. So we kind of have the whole spectrum, kind of a bit more introspective in the beginning, and then it kind of builds up, and then it ends up in a celebration style thing. But I would like to talk to you about what is the you yourself personally in being in a ceremony where there's music involved, the Ikaros. What do you feel is the role of the medicine music, or the role of Ikaros or chants in the process? I would like to hear your opinion. Obviously, I would like to share mine afterwards as well.
Mm. Yeah, I'm curious to hear what you will say. Yeah, I guess I can speak from like how it's felt for me, and speak from a place of receiving, because I feel like those who are singing the songs, or, you know, singing very specific ikaros, very specific moments, they will be able to speak about it in a way that's very specific to their understanding and very specific to their intention. So from my experience of really receiving, it's like the music is the river that is carrying me. And you know, sometimes it's really directing in a very subtle way, like the river has a flow, and it has a direction. And within the river, you know, there is a freedom to how we respond to the water, and whether we want to try and swim upstream, or whether we want to try and splash, or, you know, whether we're floating or whether we're drowning. Like, the music isn't an invincible force that can guarantee something to happen, but it definitely has an influence. Like, I have often felt it like a lifeline, especially when I'm having a hard time. Like, just follow the music, Ayla, and you'll be okay. And it really is that experience. I follow the music, it's okay. And I guess what I mean by okay is I'm not drowning. Like, it holds me afloat. It helps me to remain connected to myself and connected to whatever forces are being invoked by the music in that moment. You know, and that's very specific to what is being shared. What healing forces is it calling? What spirits is it calling to? What is the intention of that song? Is it a healing song? Is it a celebration song? Is it for the ancestors? Is it specifically for the person it's being sung to? And this is where there is this absolute magic. It's a tool. It's a very, very specific tool that can go in, and, you know, I've heard people speak about how it can literally go into our DNA and be working on us, and working on the energy lines of our body, and working with our trauma and our nervous system, and communicating with our ancestors, and speaking with the earth. And it's a language of, like you said, it's a universal language, and quite literally universal language. Like, not just, oh yeah, every single human being makes music, but it's like, it is the language of the universe. It is the language of everything we see, and that's quite powerful to acknowledge. Okay, if all of this is, you know, like I've heard the Shipibo, they speak about everything is made of song, and they can read the song and everything, and that's what their beautiful drawings, their embroidered, it's like the Ikaros in form, they literally can read it. And so if everything is form, and everything can be read, and everything can be sung, and I am also exactly the same, if somebody who knows what they're doing is singing to the song lines of my own being, and working with that very carefully and intentionally, this is something very powerful and something incredibly mysterious. I'm curious what you will say.
Beautiful explanation. Yeah, what you mentioned is like music is vibration as well, right? And everything is vibration. Our atoms is literally vibration. So, but what I was going to say is exactly what you mentioned is a lifeline. It's like this. No matter how deep you are in your process, you can have your eyes closed and crawled in the corner of the medicine house and going through the deepest, hardest thing you've ever been through. The music will always be there as a reminder that you are safe. And there is a team of people here, and it's a controlled space, and everything is going to be okay. And but another role that I notice music plays is somehow synchronistically people keep telling in the word circles after the ceremony that it's this word. They said abuelo, and I thought about my grandfather, and it helps them to like take them on the path to unravel their specific process. And it's always synchronistically people keep saying the music was exactly perfect for me, as it was as if you were singing just for me, and it was guiding me in exactly where I needed to go. So, and I'm curious if it's really that perfect, or maybe there's this teamwork between the medicine and the music where your conscious catches exactly the words you want to catch. And um, yeah, I've no complete understanding of it, but the music to me seems to be a huge part of the healing, because it also sometimes when you go to this negative place, it kind of just brings you back to positive. It's like just music is such a positive thing, such a beautiful thing, that it just doesn't let you go too dark or to an unproductive negative place, so to speak. Um, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, other than yes.
And I remember in my first ever ayahuasca ceremony, I could. I don't think it ever happened to me before, but I would close my eyes and I could see the music. So not hear them, like I would hear it, but I could see the music. So my psychedelic visions were dancing together with the music, kind of like this old Windows media player where, yeah, it was so bizarre. I don't know if it happens to you a lot, or like what even is like the blurry line between different senses. And yeah, I'm getting in the deep waters here with all this. The realizations are coming to me about the music, the vibration. Yeah, I'm done. I'm done speaking. Um, uh, what what inspires you? For example, as a creator, when you where do you find your inspiration?
I really find the inspiration from um, my experience. Really, my experience as a human being in relationship with life and with the spirit of life. And I really value my human experience. There can be, some spiritual approaches or pathways can place more emphasis on kind of leaving behind like the humanness, the emotions and the story and the process. But for me, that this is really rich, fertile soil, and my human experience is that which is actually like creating the creativity, because it's my human experience which is in relationship with life and with the ancestors and with the land and with the spirit. And it's from being in relationship, me and this and myself, being in relationship with myself even, that is this rich fertile soil from where the creativity and the songs are growing from. And certainly as I have moved along my journey, like at the beginning, it was much more, it basically was all only about my human experience, because I didn't have a sense of the sacred or prayer or spirit or, the earth as a living being. Like that didn't really exist. So it was very much about that. And now I feel it's much more about this dance and this conversation and me speaking with the earth and asking for guidance and speaking to the spirit and coming with my prayer and my rawness and my vulnerability and my challenges and, asking for help and offering gratitude and invoking that which I'm calling to be felt in the moment. And I'm definitely go through like chapters or phases where a certain aspect is more relevant. For me right now, it's really all about the ancestors. It's like I'm totally on that path, like the spirit of the land and the ancestors. I think have always been, well, not always, since the shift moment of my life and my music, the spirit of the earth and the ancestors have been quite constant themes. But the creativity is being defined by the experience that I'm having as a human being here in human form, living this life in this pretty crazy world.
Speaking of Earth, I know you're very passionate about the global events and sort of, people like you who talk about love and harmony and try to push through your songs and through your work, push the world towards more love and more connection with the earth. But as you said, there are forces, the negative forces, sort of that arguably you can say are kind of winning right now. What do you think we could do through the music and through the plant medicine to maybe help the world be less sick?
Well, the most obvious thing that comes is like when we heal, the world becomes less sick. Like just as simple as that. Like we are part of a great organism, the earth and all beings who live here. Like we are part of a one living organism altogether. And it's like each one of us is a cell, part of a one big body. And for every cell that heals, well, that body is going to slowly become more healthy and less sick. And of course, it can be very easy to be like, I'm just one human being. And it's also very easy to slip into this kind of hyper individualized mentality in terms of like, it's all about me and it's all about my healing, and therefore I can just like shut out the rest of the world and the suffering of other people, because as long as I'm healing, I'm doing my part. Like there is a truth to this, and there is a kind of that I feel like there is an extension. Our healing by its nature begins to extend beyond ourselves, because I feel that from my experience, like the deeper I heal, the more I begin to understand how profoundly connected everything is, because I'm coming into a state of deeper connection with myself, which I feel like a lot of the trauma and the things that need healing is this kind of fractured connection, like fractured state of our fractured natural state. And by healing and kind of returning to a sense of wholeness and regulating ourselves and letting go or that which needs to be let go, and coming into a state of health as an individual, I believe it's natural that we begin to go like, oh, now, like now I'm feeling a bit better. I can begin to go like, oh, I'm not alone here. I'm part of a great web of life, which I'm just one tiny little strand on. And actually humanity itself is just one little strand within the great web of life. Like, I'm part of this huge web where everything is interconnected in ways that I probably can never even fully grasp. And actually, it's a total illusion that we are separate from one another, that we are separate from the earth, that we are separate from the spirit world. So I feel deep, true healing will naturally bring us out of this state of kind of hyper-individualized, very capitalistic healing mindset, which we do see a lot of. That is just natural in the world that we live in. Like, there is a lot of emphasis on that, but people naturally begin to open their eyes more and more and wake up to a greater truth. And then we begin to really work together, and then we begin to understand that there's no such thing as my healing when I live in such a broken world. Like, there's no such thing as reaching a destination of me being totally fine and living in a broken world. Like, my healing is our healing and is their healing, and your healing is my healing. And the more that we understand that, the stronger we become, the more powerful we become, the more of a counter force to the predatory forces, which, like you say, kind of look like they're winning at the moment. And yes, we must really do everything we can to be the energy that is needed in this world as the counter force to the dark forces, whatever we want to call that, or however we want to understand that. I don't really even get it, but I do believe starting with ourselves is incredibly powerful, and following that, trusting that, being committed and devoted to continuing will create ripples and will hold hands with others and will unite us as humanity and will include all beings and will include the darkness and the suffering of people whose lives have nothing to do with ours, which isn't true, because it has everything to do with ours. We are all related, and this is what we all hear. Many traditions will speak about this truth. We are connected to one another. We are connected to everything. We are not separate. We are related. And everything that's happening to the earth and to all peoples on this earth is also happening to us. But likewise, everything that's happening to us is also happening for the bigger. So we are a microcosm of the macrocosm, and it can be very empowering to acknowledge our individual part within this great time that we're in, this great turning, this great healing of humanity. And really, where does all the darkness come from? I don't personally believe in evil. I don't buy into that story, or that doesn't resonate for me. I put it like that. I don't believe there are evil forces. I don't believe there are evil people. I just believe that there's pain and there's trauma that creates disconnection, and that creates closed hearts and broken hearts, and enables people to treat one another the way that we see happening, within people's homes and within nations being at war, and also enables us to treat the earth in the way that we do. Like, we can only do that because we're so desperately disconnected and so wounded, the wound of separation. So by healing that wound, one heart at a time, one life at a time, and coming home, reclaiming our place within this sacred web of life, and reclaiming our place as children of this incredible miracle, children of the earth, living with love and devotion. This is what is needed.
Yeah, that's very beautiful. Thank you so much. Hurt people, and I do agree with you that there are no bad people necessarily, but there are people that are just not good at the moment. And I think that with the beautiful tools that we have now, like plant medicines, we can maybe change that a little bit. I definitely believe in it. I've been in many of an argument with my optimistic approach, but I dream of the world where everyone has had ayahuasca and everyone has done yoga and meditation, and everyone is listening to maybe your music instead of gangster rap and stuff like that. But I think, we live in such challenging times, but we have better tools than our ancestors ever before. And I love what you said about the fact that we have so many people coming to Loire, and they're sick physically because they're so stressed about the wars or about the elections or something like that. And in reality, it's like, just heal yourself first. Heal yourself first and get the best version of yourself, and then start radiating that and maybe help somebody. But don't take on those huge challenges so that maybe you not necessarily can solve, and don't get overwhelmed and just burnt out. Because I can imagine a good person that is so upset about some negative event that's happening in the world, and then now that good person, that loving, caring person, is now banning their friends on Facebook, which is not necessarily an act of love, right? So it's like, clean your own room first, and then go ahead and try to change the world. So I think that's a very wise and very balanced approach from you, and I salute you for those words.
Well, I would like to say that I really have been learning this over the past few months. Like those words come from my experience of having been very intensely pulled into the horrors of the world, feeling that pain so deeply in my heart. It's always been, ever since a young child, it's so natural. My sense of empathy and compassion goes so deep. If I see like a wounded bird on the street, it's like it goes so deeply into me. So if I see the horrors of the world, I can't not feel it incredibly deeply. And I have had the experience of what good am I to myself, to my family, or to the world if I'm in a state of despair, distress, emotional dysregulation, overwhelm, confusion, fear. Like, how am I serving the healing of humanity if I'm in those states? Because I think that is what is needed for the world to heal, which basically, we have to not look away. That's what my heart's been saying. Like, I have to witness this. I cannot turn away. This needs to be seen. How will this ever go away and change unless we see it and stand up for the earth, stand up for humanity, stand up for that which very rightly does need standing up for. That is true. But it doesn't work when we are collapsing, and when we are not shining, and when we're not in love and kindness and dignity and respect and in a state of grace in ourselves. If we're not radiating our light, we cannot be serving goodness. We cannot be serving the good force, and we cannot be serving the healing that is needed. Because the best way we can serve that is by being those energies that are needed, like first and foremost. And from there, the right action will come, the right direction will come. We will know where is our place, when is the moment to speak out, when is the moment to rest, when is the moment to, whatever it is we're guided to. And I guess I wanted to just add this in because it really is these times where there's so much suffering, and there has been also for thousands of years, and most probably there will continue to be a lot of suffering for a while, and many catastrophes. And we are being, I feel like we are being shaped and trained for these times of how do we respond, and how do we stay in our center, and how do we stay in alignment with the qualities that are most needed here on earth, that we anchor those qualities here in this reality through our own being, through being them. This is the most powerful way that we can anchor that energy that is needed, is through being it, through walking it, radiating it, emanating it, living it. Then our thoughts, our words, our actions will be coming from a place deeply aligned with those truths. And I, from my own experience of having really wobbled and really kind of been pulled under the water, I'm beginning to understand that this somehow is the way. And it's, you know, it's not easy, because it's also not about spiritually bypassing. That's also not the answer. It's some very fine dance of, you know, including it all, responding to it all, but being very anchored, very grounded, very centered, very connected, and you know, leaning back into all that presence and support and guidance that we have of the invisible realm that are also working here with us.
Very wise words, Ayla. Thank you so much. Synchronistically so. Most people don't know I'm originally from Latvia, because I don't look Latvian. People think I am Colombian or something like that. And a few days ago, you were in Latvia. And as you say those things, it kind of reminds me when Latvia was getting its independence from Soviet Union, they actually managed to do it without, you know, fighting and revolutions and killing people and stuff like that. What they did was they created a human chain of people holding hands all the way from Estonia through Latvia and down to Lithuania, and they were just holding hands and they were just singing. It's called Singing Revolution. I don't know if you heard about it, but I think that this is the spirit of us sort of changing the world. Instead of going there and fighting, and your desire to be good becoming just another bad person, just with a slightly different truth. Maybe, starting with ourselves and going from harmony. And I think that maybe they can sing some of your songs when in that resistance.
That's such a beautiful symbolic it was a reality, but also the symbol of that, like holding, that's the way, like holding hands with a very clear purpose, you know, like they didn't just do that without an intention. There was a very, very clear purpose for liberation. And singing, this is such a beautiful symbol of what is needed, a vision for what is needed in this time.
So very synchronistically. So I was so surprised when you messaged me and you said let's record. I'm Latvian time. I was like, are you giving me Latvian time because you think I'm Latvian and I'm in Latvia, or it's like, oh, you were actually giving a concert in Riga? That is so cool. I haven't been in Latvia for 5 years, so maybe it's time for me to go back. Ayla, we are slightly over an hour now. I think it was very fascinating, and it was so interesting to learn about your journey and your medicine journey. Any maybe last parting words, any words of guidance to the people, or maybe where can they find you, or where can they attend your next concerts? I know you're traveling now and giving a lot of concerts, right?
Yeah, I'm coming to the end of this tour. I will be on tour again in October, and maybe it's worth to just bring into this space that I have been very influenced from my years of being in ceremony and singing in ceremonies, and it reached a point in my journey, like for many years I wasn't singing in, you know, publicly, like that. I just had no interest in. I was like, why would I want to do that when I can sit in ceremony and pray and be in this incredibly sacred space? And then it just became very clear. Like, Ayla, you need to be out there and sharing your music, and also, you know, unsustainable for my own body, basically, to be staying awake so often in ceremonies, and also a deep respect for deep reverence for that space. And yeah, so, for many reasons, I now am only really sharing in concerts, but my intention is always to hold it as a ceremony. I have no interest in going back to those years when I was younger and playing to people who are drinking and not listening and being some form of entertainment. Like, for me, it's not about entertainment. It's like, okay, let's sit together and pray and listen deeply to ourselves and listen deeply to the earth and be guided by the force of these songs, the spirit of the songs, the spirits that come with each songs. And the power of creating these spaces, especially for those who it's maybe not right for them, or they don't have the courage, or they're not ready, or that's just not actually what they need to drink medicine. It's not for everybody. It's not. I don't actually believe there's one medicine that is medicine for everybody. It's like we are very unique, and can be different moments of our lives that a different medicine is what is needed. And I see the real beauty of it, also bridging these spaces of being in prayer and being in sacred space together, and gathering in a way of creating a safe space to feel and love and cry and sing and dance. So that's kind of the vision and the intention of which I offer with my concerts. It's like, then there isn't really a word, like a word doesn't really exist yet of quite what this is, because I don't really feel it's a concert yet. I don't want to label it as a ceremony. It's, it is what it is. It is what it just is what it is. But yeah, people can find me. Anyone who lives in Europe might catch me in the autumn.
I think the word that can work for you is a celebration, something between the concert and the ceremony. Ayla, for people that don't know, I think it took us about 3 months to make this episode possible because of your busy schedule and my busy schedule. And but I was totally worth the wait. I enjoyed it a lot, and thank you so much for all the wisdom. And for you guys, find Ayla on YouTube. She has, I think, one of her songs is at like 25 million views now. So that's probably people that are listening to this podcast have heard your music, whether they know it's coming from you or no. But find it, listen to it. It's truly connected to the spirit, to the earth, and enjoy it, and it will do you a lot of good. So thank you so much, Ayla.
Thank you, Sam.
Guys, you were listening to Ayahuasca Podcast. As always, with you, the host, Sam Believ. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a like wherever you are listening, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to support us and psychedelic renaissance at large, please follow us and leave us a like wherever it is you're listening. Share this episode with someone who will benefit from this information. Nothing in this podcast is intended as medical advice, and it is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This episode is sponsored by La Huayra Ayahuasca Retreat. At La Huayra, we combine affordability, accessibility, and authenticity. La Huayra, connect, heal, grow. Guys, I'm looking forward to hosting you.
Con la vida, vida de la baila, cura con la guaira, limpia, limpia.